Good day, everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about the journey of Odysseus. Let's start with the background. The word Odyssey has come to mean a journey of epic proportions. The word comes from Homer's epic poem, the Odyssey, written in the 18th century before Christ, and it is a sequel to Homer's other epic poem, the Iliad, which describes the last day of the Great Trojan War. And the Odyssey speaks of Odysseus' adventures that delay by a decade the return to his beloved homeland Ithaca. The Odyssey was probably a popular story transmitted orally through the generations. With Homer writing the story in one narrative, Homer tells the story in a flashback format and narrates the legendary journey of King Odysseus to return home to his palace and family after Trojan War had ended. Now let's delve into the plot of the story, focusing on the highlights, important details that happened in the story. First, we have Odysseus joins the Trojan War. Odysseus, a clever Greek hero, is called to fight in Trojan War. Though reluctant, he eventually joins, leaving behind his wife Penelope and their young son Telemachus. Now, right after that, the Trojan horse victory. After 10 years of fighting, Odysseus devises a plan with the Trojan horse, helping the Greeks win the war. This victory, however, marks the beginning of his long journey back home, as he angers some of the gods, especially Poseidon. Then, trouble begins at sea. Odysseus and his men start their journey home, but their path is filled with challenges. Poseidon sends storms and obstacles, delaying them and testing their strength. And right after that, we have the dangerous encounters and temptations of Odysseus. The first one, we have the lotus eaters. Odysseus' men eat the lotus flower, making them forget about home. Odysseus forces them back on the ship. Second encounter, we have the Cyclops, Polyphemus. Odysseus and his crew encounter a one-eyed giant, Polyphemus, who traps them. Odysseus blinds him to escape, but this act brings Poseidon further wrath. And then the third one, we have the Aulia and the Bag of Winds. The god of winds, Aeolus, helps Odysseus by giving him a bag of winds, but his men accidentally release the winds, blowing them off course again. Then we have the deadly battles and lost. First, we have the Lystrigians. These giants cannibals destroy most of Odysseus' fleet, leaving only his ship. Second, we have the Circe the sorceress. On her island, Circe turns some of Odysseus' men into pigs. Odysseus, with her Hermes' help, persuades her to change them back. They stay on her island for a year to recover, and after that journey to the underworld to retrieve his men. Following Circe's advice, Odysseus travels to the underworld, where he meets the prophet Tiresias. Tiresias warns him of further challenges and tells him how to eventually appease the gods. And then, facing Scylla and Charybdis and the Sirens, Odysseus and his men pass the deadly sea monster, Scylla, and Charybdis, and narrowly escape. The encounter the Sirens, whose singing lures sailors to their doom. Odysseus listens while tied to the mast, protecting his men. And then the cattle of the sun god. Despite Odysseus' warnings, his men eat the sacred cattle of the sun god, Helios. In anger, Zeus destroys their ship, killing everyone except Odysseus. After that, Odysseus was willing alone. Odysseus washes ashore on Calypso's island, where he trapped for several years. Eventually, the gods order Calypso to let him go, and Odysseus builds a raft to sail home and return to Ithaca and the suitors. Odysseus finally returns to Ithaca after 20 years, only to find his home filled with suitors trying to marry Penelope. Disguised as a beggar, he reunites with his son, Telemachus, and they plan to reclaim his kingdom. And after reclaiming his kingdom, Odysseus, with Telemachus and a few loyal servants, defeat all the suitors. They kill each one, restoring peace to Ithaca. Lastly, we have the reuniting with Penelope. Penelope tests Odysseus to ensure it's really him. He passes the test and they are joyfully reunited. Odysseus at last finds peace at home with his family. And now we witness the journey of Odysseus throughout returning back to his homeland. And on her way, he encounters a lot of challenges, especially due to the gods and the forces of nature. And now let's move on with the characters of the story. Main characters. First, we have Odysseus. He's Rule, the hero of the story and the king of Ithaca, and he is known for his intelligence, bravery, and cunning. He faces numerous challenges in his journey back home after the Trojan War, and uses his cleverness to overcome obstacles. Second one, we have Penelope, Odysseus' loyal wife. Faithful and clever, Penelope waits for Odysseus for 20 years. She fends off suitors and devises tricks to delay them, hoping for Odysseus' return. Third, we have Telemachus, son of Odysseus and Penelope. And Telemachus grows from a young, insecure boy to a brave young man as he searches for news of his father. He helps Odysseus reclaim their home from the suitors. And Athena, goddess of wisdom and Odysseus' protector. Athena guides and assists Odysseus and Telemachus, using her powers to help them succeed. She admires Odysseus' cleverness and bravery. And lastly, we have Poseidon for the main character, god of the sea and Odysseus' enemy. Poseidon holds a grudge against Odysseus for building his son, for blinding his son, I mean, the Cyclops Polyphemus, and constantly tries to hinder his journey home. And for the supporting characters, we have Zeus, king of the gods. Although he occasionally assists Odysseus, Zeus remains neutral for much of the story. He ultimately allows Odysseus to return home after 20 years. We have the Cirrus, a sorcerer on his island of Aia, and Cirrus initially turns Odysseus' men into pigs, but later helps him after he resists her spell. Odysseus and his men stay on her island for a year. And we have Calypso, a nymph who lives on the island of Ogygia. Calypso keeps Odysseus in her island for 7 years, hoping to make him her mortal husband. She eventually releases him after the gods intervene. Polyphemus, a cyclops and a son of Poseidon. Polyphemus traps Odysseus and his men in his cave. Odysseus blinds him to escape, which angers Poseidon and leads to further obstacles on his journey. Tiresias, a blind prophet in the underworld. So Tiresias gives Odysseus critical advice about his journey and warns him of the dangers ahead, helping him prepare for his challenges. And Owain, a loyal swineherd in Ithaca. Owain is a faithful servant who helps Odysseus reclaim his throne. He assists in his plan to defeat the suitors and stays loyal throughout Odysseus' absence. And Athenous, the leader of the suitors. Arrogant and aggressive, Athenous is the most disrespectful of Penelope's suitors. He lets the suitors in their attempts to take over Odysseus' household. Lastly, we have Eurymachus, another leading suitor. He is manipulative and deceitful. Eurymachus tries to take over Odysseus' household and seeks Penelope's hand in marriage. He is ultimately killed by Odysseus at the end. And now let's move on with the theme present in the story and how it is relevant or derived from scripture. The first theme we have is the loyalty and faithfulness. So, in the part where Penelope remains loyal to Odysseus for 20 years, despite the pressure she had encounter with her suitors, Odysseus as well strives to return to his family and homeland is the evidence of loyalty and faithfulness there. And also, it is relevant to scripture, or it is derived from scripture as well, because according to the Proverbs chapter 3, verse 3, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck and write them on the tablet of your heart. Next, we have the perseverance through hardship. So, in the part where Odysseus faces countless of challenges, including monsters, storms, and hostile forces, but never gives up on returning home, that's the evidence of perseverance there. And in relevance to scripture, we have the Romans chapter 5, verse 3, for teaches suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. Next, we have the wisdom and cunning. So, in the part where Odysseus is known for his cleverness, using strategy rather than brute force, he escapes danger from outsmarting foes like a cyclops, by blinding him, finding ways to um, finding ways to overcome those challenges. So that's the evidence of being cunning and with having those a lot of wisdom. And in relevance to scripture, Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Next, we have the importance of hospitality. So, throughout the Odyssey, characters show a lack of hospitality. Those who are generous and welcoming are rewarded, while the suitors in Ithaca abuse their virtue and faces consequences. So that's the reason why there's an importance of hospitality that we can learn from the story. And in relevance to the scripture, in the Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2, do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. And next one, we have the respect for the divine. So Odysseus wrote the story recognizes the rule of the gods in his life, praying to them and showing respect for their power and guidance. And in relevance to scripture, from Psalm chapter 111 and verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who follow his precepts have good understanding. And lastly, we have the strength of the family bonds. So, despite the long separation, the bond between Odysseus, Penelope, and Telemachus remains strong and is driving force for each of them. And in relevance to scripture, um, we have Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land. And that's all for the Odysseus myths derived from scripture. Thank you so much, and that would be all for today. Goodbye.